What's going on, guys? Cody from Motorcycle MD. Welcome to another video. As you can tell, we do not have a Honda on the bench. In fact, we have a Yamaha R6 0102. And even though I typically try to stay in my lane when it comes to motorcycle repair and information I try to provide, this video really goes to show that even if you have a little bit of information on how a motorcycle does operate or a newer bike operates, you can almost apply it to many other bikes and brands. I've never, ever in my life worked on a Yamaha R6, an 02 model for that matter, but this is a family friend, practically raised me growing up, and they deserve my time and energy trying to help them out fix their bike. So this Yamaha R6 was ridden to work, back and forth, number of days, running fine, no problems whatsoever. Comes back out to start the bike and it just doesn't start. Turns over, goes through the process. It's definitely turning it over fast enough to where it should be starting, but it's just not. Symptoms like that are signs of where we should be focusing our energy. I will say that I've already done the diagnostic procedure when it comes to figuring out what's going on, why is there no spark on this bike, and I've already ordered the part. The issue that I did run into, in fact, is that the parts for this bike that I needed are not available anymore. They're not being made anywhere in the US as far as I can find. And I'm not going to throw a $20 Amazon part on this to try to fix it. I'd rather try to find a known good part, maybe an old one used, that I can use to bring this bike back to life. That is a maybe Yamaha factory part. But we have no spark. How do we know we have no spark? Well, let me show you. So thankfully, these spark plugs are actually, or there's coils. These are coil over type system. Usually there is a separate harness and they are individualized so they can keep time. These are a coil over style system. There's just one per cylinder, one per spark plug, 4 total. And these things are expensive and they do go bad. But when it comes to a scenario of where the bike was running fine for many weeks and then all of a sudden 100% not running at all, we can kind of narrow it down to what the problem may be. It's likely not going to be carbureted. If it's carbureted, you'll probably have a symptom of it not running well or a couple of cylinders firing. Rarely do you get a black and white type of symptom where it was running fine, now it's not whatsoever. That automatically leads me to some type of electrical issue. Either it's not getting spark all the way across the cylinder, the kill switch could be bad, maybe the ECU is bad. It's very rare for ECUs to go bad. So we have to figure out, first, are we getting spark? Because that would lead us down the next path. So all I really need to do is get a random spark plug that I can find that will fit this style of head, which is the threaded part. Actually, any spark plug that you get from NGK either comes with a cap or not. You can unscrew them. This one I have ready. So we'll plug this in all the way in like it should be, and we will see if we have spark by simply just putting this spark plug, grounding it to the motor, and we'll be looking for any type of sign of some bluage, some whiteage, electricity flowing out of this thing. See if I can get a good position. So this part is grounded onto the case there. We are making contact with metal, so we should see a spark coming out of the top of that electrode. So key on. You can hear the fuel pump. The battery is charged. I've been charging it. The kill switch is on. Turn it through. Nothing. I can hold it. I would be getting hit pretty hard right now if that was working correctly. So, we have no spark. Now, knowing that knowledge, we know that what has to take place for all of the spark to be killed. I don't think ever in the history of motorcycle repair has all 4 coils gone bad at once. So before you throw all of your money away by buying brand new coils and new spark plugs, the reason why it has no spark is going to be something that is in control of all of the spark. ECU, and in this particular, a pulse generator. Almost all electronic ignition systems will have a pulse pickup, exciter coil, something of that nature that sends spark from the crankshaft or the camshaft or wherever it wants to grab its signal from. I do want to pause the video here and interject on myself. The way that I described that didn't make any sense whatsoever. The crankshaft obviously is not sending a spark signal through the pulse pickup. It's totally designed to read the timing of where the crankshaft is at so that the ECU can tell the coils when to fire. So I explained it a couple different ways through here. Just know that the pulse pickup is not waiting on a signal, it is sending the signal. Okay, moving on. To the ECU to disperse that signal to the coils to tell it when to fire. Okay, Pulse generators are simply what they are. They are a generation of a signal that when something is spinning past it, is telling that pulse to say, hey, send a signal here, send a signal there, send a signal there, and it's always to the spark plugs. What we do know is that this does have a pulse generator. So what we can do is we can just simply go to the pulse pickup and do a resistance check on it, okay? Because there will always be typically a resistance through that pulse. Different bikes will have different readings and how much it should be, whether it's between 200 and 350 ohms of resistance or whatever. There should be some type of signal. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I found what side the pulse generator is on. Again, I've never worked on these bikes before, and I tried to locate the harness that comes out of this. So what we'll do is we'll just pop this cover off real quick so we can get a better look at this, find the harness, and do a quick check on it. Here's the harness coming out of it right here. I can see it, and I can follow that up to see where it ends. So we will undo that. Boom. Let's just verify that it is. Yeah, we're definitely pulling from that. Okay, so here's our pulse generator. We've now isolated it. Now we're just on pulse generator side, not on the engine side or the harness side. We're on the signal side. Okay. Pulse generators should always have some type of value. It's just common knowledge when you work on motorcycles and they have that system, they should have some type of resistance value to them. What I don't want is to find like an open, or if, in this case I do want to find it because I want to find the issue. We're looking for anything that's maybe abnormal, like a no reading whatsoever. Okay, as if the signal is just completely open or the sensor is broken, overheated, whatever reason as to why it failed. That's what we're looking for. So we can grab our meter. This is an auto ranging Fluke. I love this meter. It's the 11.7 model. Go to the ohms section right here, resistance. I'm just going to look for straight prong to wire type test. Doesn't matter positive or negative, we're just reading resistance. It's not a diode, so we'll read through this and it's reading open, OL. Okay, if I switch them just for giggles, we are still getting the same reading. It's open. There's no resistance or anything coming from the sensor. It's just saying that it's wide open. Okay, to me that dictates a problem. So I ordered a new pulse pickup. So based on that reading alone, I went straight after trying to find a replacement. Got one from Australia, Dubbo, I guess is the place that it's called, from a place called Bike Part Out. I guess like a Bike Part Out website or something. So what I want to do is I want to verify what I think it might be by when I pop this thing out. Definitely used. There's a little pickup coil that's usually fastened to either the inside of the case or the case cover itself. I want to check to make sure that this is also not reading the same exact thing. I don't want OL coming out of this thing as well, because that would make my diagnosis shoddy and probably not correct. But knowing that these things should have some type of signal or a resistance reading, hopefully this one is good too. Alright, so here's our signal, positive and negative, straight to the sensor. Bingo, 295. That's probably a factory reading, maybe 270 to 300 or 3. It's usually some type of range. If you have a manual, it'll likely tell you. But pulse generators need that resistance through them for them to work. That's what I do know. These things can fail because they get hot, overheated, a bad manufacturer, or whatever. There's a number of reasons why they can go bad. These also are not necessarily like go or no-go style of problems. And let's say it cuts all spark once the bike is hot, it's probably because there's an issue with it. These can fail in a number of different ways, but this is a surefire fail when it comes to this signal not having its reading wide open for whatever reason. So I'm pretty confident that this will fix the problem. Let's go ahead and pop this cover off. I do have a gasket on order as well, which we will need for this cover. Let's pop it out and pop it in. So there is a gasket there, which is good. Here is our pulse pickup. Our pulse signal here is running on the outside of here. So these little signals here are telling it when to fire. There's 1, 2, 3, and there's 2 of them right there. So this plate is not loose at all, which is good. So we can go ahead and just swap this pulse out. thing I also want to spend a little time on is getting all the old silicone off of this used one. Just being careful with the wires, but you can use your fingernail and get a lot of this off. There's no reason to cut into this with a razor or anything like that. You don't want to ruin the rubber. Just double check, make sure that we are still, I didn't damage the sensor by twisting the wires a little bit. Bingo. Alright, so what I want to do first is grab a little bit of silicone. I'm using some gray RTV, ultra gray, high torque. I really don't care what you use. Less is more when it comes to silicone, especially since this has a gasket. I'm just going to layer this in here real quick. That's enough for right now. What I will also do is grab the bolts, the Allen bolts that were holding this down, put a little bit of Loctite on them. It does have like a little recessed end on this switch, so, or the sensor. We want to make sure it's laying in there right, like it should, nice and flush. It's not going to over torque this, just lock it in. That's seated position right there. Seated position. That's good. That's going nowhere. Okay, so that's in. I want to grab a little bit of silicone to throw right on top of that rubber and the corners of it. I go with very thin outside of that. If you want, you can do a very thin layer. If you don't trust the gasket, I would. You can do a little bit of thin layer all the way around. It's not going to hurt nothing. Here's our gasket. Put a little bit down here at the bottom so it would hold this gasket in nice for me. And I'm going to want to make sure our surface area of the engine's all cleaned up, nice and dry. Now what I will do is on this case, this is a horizontal mating case right here. So here's the top and bottom of the case halves. I also like to put a little silicone right at those case halves. There's our case half right there. Very light coating, less is more. Alright, this is ready to go on, nice and tight. Never took the Phillips head off, never needed to. Make sure these are sitting in there nice. That rod went into here, and our dowel is down here, up there, and down there. So, sweet. There we go. Easy. Alright, plug this bad boy in, see if we get some spark. I'm just going to bump this starter to see if we can't get any sign of life. There it is, you saw that? I see it. That's spark, baby. So we'll take this out, push this bad boy back into its home. They always install really weird. Alright, should get some clicks out of it. There we go. That's all the force I got. Kind of verify, see how high up it is compared to the other ones. Looks the same. Alright, I'll plug this back in. We'll see if it'll fire up with what's in the carbs right now. Sounds like success to me. There's a freaking bee in here. Hi-ya! That is the biggest bee I've ever seen. Oh snap! Where'd it go? Pulse generator, boom, done. Let's get this bike back to him. And if you guys want more tips, helpful tricks when it comes to maintenance, basic stuff, and cool tune-up and maintenance stuff that you can apply pretty much instantly, join the mailing list. I try to send out the coolest information that I can to you guys, and I would hate for you to miss out on it. The card up here will help navigate you to that mailing list, as well as a link in the description below. As always, Cody from Motorcycle MD, bringing you guys quality tips and tricks for your next build or your daily rider. See you guys next time. Later.